When people imagine pirates, they picture Jack Sparrow swinging from ropes with a bottle of rum, buried treasure maps marked with an X, and swashbuckling adventures on crystal blue waters. The reality of piracy during the Golden Age, roughly 1680 to 1730, was far grimmer. Most pirates woke up on cramped, stinking ships, spent their days doing tedious maintenance work, and faced a strong probability of dying before age 30 from disease, violence, or the hangman's noose. Let's look at what a typical day actually involved for a pirate crew sailing the Caribbean in 1718. Unlike naval vessels with their rigid schedules and bosun's whistles, pirate ships had no formal wake-up call. Most crew members rose with the sun around 5 or 6 a.m., not because they wanted to, but because sleeping below deck became unbearable as the tropical heat built up. The lower decks were dark, damp spaces where up to 200 men might sleep in an area measuring roughly 120 by 40 feet. Privacy didn't exist. Hammocks swayed side by side, packed so tightly that men sleeping in them touched shoulders with their neighbors. The smell was overwhelming. Imagine a combination of unwashed bodies, rotting food, stale water, rat droppings, and the ever-present stench from the bilge, the lowest part of the ship where seawater, waste, and various fluids collected. One sailor described the quarters as a cavern where the heat from hundreds of human bodies was overpowering, and that description was for a naval ship, which at least had some semblance of order. Pirate ships, often overcrowded with extra men for boarding actions, were worse. Rats and cockroaches were constant companions. Spanish galleons reportedly killed over 4,000 rats during single voyages from the Caribbean to Europe. These rodents chewed through ropes, contaminated food supplies, and spread disease. Pirates would organize rat hunts when the infestation became unbearable, but it was a losing battle. Breakfast was a hasty affair, consisting of whatever rations were available. The standard pirate diet included hardtack, rock-hard biscuits that were often infested with weevils, and salted meat that had been preserved in brine for months or even years. The meat had to be soaked in fresh water to remove some of the salt before cooking, but even then, it remained unpalatably salty. Fresh water aboard ships turned foul within weeks of leaving port. The water, stored in wooden kegs, became stagnant and unpleasant tasting. This explains why pirates drank alcohol with nearly every meal. It wasn't about being constantly drunk, though that certainly happened. It was about survival. Rum, beer, and various alcoholic concoctions were safer than contaminated water. Pirates drank a mixture called bumbo, which combined rum, water, sugar, and nutmeg. As for hygiene, there essentially wasn't any. Clean water was too precious to waste on washing. Pirates might lower themselves over the side of the ship to rinse off with seawater when conditions allowed, but this was hardly a proper bath. Most pirates went weeks or months without anything resembling a proper wash. The captain had the luxury of a chamber pot in his quarters. Regular crew members used platforms with holes cut in them, positioned over the water at the ship's edge. The crew divided into 3 watches, with 2 watches on duty at any given time and 1 resting. This rotation meant that roughly 2/3 of the crew was always working. On-duty watches spent their time on essential tasks that kept the ship operational. Sails needed constant attention, trimming, adjusting, and repairing. The rigging required splicing and checking for weak points. One critical job was manning the bilge pump. Water constantly seeped into the lower hull, and if the bilge wasn't pumped regularly, the ship would eventually sink. This was miserable work, often assigned as punishment or given to the newest crew members. The men who worked the bilge pump were called bilge rats, and the term eventually became an insult. Around midday, crew members not on watch duty would assist with food preparation or engage in the one aspect of pirate life that genuinely set them apart from naval and merchant vessels: democratic governance. Pirate ships operated as floating democracies, governed by written articles that every crew member had to sign. These articles, often called the Pirate Code, were drafted at the beginning of each voyage and required unanimous consent. The first rule of Bartholomew Roberts' Pirate Code read, "Every man has a vote in affairs of moment." This meant that major decisions, where to sail, whether to attack a particular ship, how to divide plunder, were decided by majority vote. The captain had absolute authority only during battle. The rest of the time, he was essentially an elected official who could be removed by vote if the crew became dissatisfied. The quartermaster served as a check on the captain's power. While the captain handled navigation and military decisions, the quartermaster managed daily operations, adjudicated disputes, and oversaw the distribution of loot. This separation of powers prevented any single person from having complete control. Afternoon meetings might involve voting on their next destination, settling disputes between crew members, or deciding punishments for those who violated the pirate code. Punishments were brutal. Thieves, those who deserted their post, or men who brought women aboard ship without permission, faced marooning, being abandoned on a deserted island with minimal supplies. Other infractions resulted in flogging or execution. The articles also included remarkably progressive elements for the time. Pirates received compensation for injuries sustained in battle. Losing an arm might earn a pirate 800 pieces of 8. Losing a leg or an eye came with similar payments. This was essentially an early form of workers' compensation funded by the crew's communal treasure. Much of a pirate's day involved tedious waiting. Between attacks, life was extremely boring. Ships could sail for weeks without encountering a suitable target. During these long stretches, crew members who weren't on watch duty would gamble, play cards, sing sea shanties, or simply sit around talking. The lookout, stationed in the crow's nest high on the main mast, scanned the horizon for sails. When a ship was spotted, the crew would evaluate whether it was worth pursuing. Pirates preferred easy targets, lightly armed merchant vessels with small crews. The goal was to convince victims that resistance was futile. Most merchant ships were undermanned to save money, sometimes carrying only 12 sailors, even on large vessels. When faced with a pirate ship crowded with 50 or more armed men, most merchant crews surrendered without a fight. The Black Flag, known as the Jolly Roger, played a crucial psychological role. Different pirate captains designed their own flags, but all conveyed the same message: surrender or face extreme violence. Some flags featured skulls and crossbones, others showed skeletons, hourglasses, or crossed cutlasses. The red flag was even more terrifying. It meant no quarter would be given. Pirates supplemented their diet by fishing whenever conditions permitted. Fresh fish provided a welcome break from salted meat and hardtack. Sea turtles were particularly prized. They were slow on land, easy to catch, and could be kept alive aboard ship until needed. When pirates captured merchant vessels, they raided the cargo hold for food supplies. Fresh fruits, vegetables, and additional alcohol were divided among the crew. Evening meals were similar to breakfast: salted meat, hardtack, and alcohol. If the day's catch had been good, there might be fresh fish. Scurvy, caused by vitamin C deficiency, was a constant threat on long voyages. Pirates in the 18th century didn't know that citrus fruits prevented scurvy, so they suffered from bleeding gums, loose teeth, and weakness. After supper, pirates had more free time. Card games and dice were popular, though gambling disputes could turn violent. Singing was common. Sea shanties helped pass the time and built camaraderie. Contrary to Hollywood portrayals, most pirates weren't particularly wealthy. They spent their plunder quickly in port cities, frequenting taverns and brothels. The romantic notion of buried treasure was largely fictional. Most pirates wanted to enjoy their stolen goods immediately, rather than bury them for an uncertain future. As darkness fell, the off-duty watch would retire to the lower decks. Hammocks were preferred over beds because they swayed with the ship's motion. The ship's surgeon, often a crew member with minimal medical training, might tend to sick or injured men in the evening. Medical care was crude at best. Wounds were cleaned with rum. Deep cuts were stitched with needle and thread. Amputations performed without anesthesia except for copious amounts of alcohol were a brutal reality. The watch on duty remained vigilant through the night, adjusting sails, checking the compass, and watching for other ships or dangerous weather. Navigation at night was challenging, and pirates used the same routes as merchant vessels, making them predictable targets for naval patrols. A typical day in a pirate's life was overwhelmingly mundane, punctuated by brief moments of terror during actual attacks. The democratically run pirate ship was indeed more egalitarian than naval or merchant vessels, where autocratic captains ruled with absolute authority. Pirates escaped the brutal treatment common on legal ships, where flogging and starvation were standard disciplinary methods. But they traded that oppression for constant discomfort, poor nutrition, disease, and the knowledge that capture meant public execution. Most pirates came from the lowest social classes. They were former sailors, escaped convicts, unemployed men, and sometimes escaped slaves. They turned to piracy because life on merchant or naval ships was brutally hard. Constant beatings, starvation wages, rotten food, and arbitrary punishment from all-powerful captains. Piracy offered an escape and the possibility of quick wealth, along with something else: freedom, brotherhood, and a voice in how their ship was run. But that freedom came at a steep price. Life expectancy for pirates was short. Most died before age 30. Disease killed more pirates than combat or executions combined. The cramped, filthy conditions aboard ship were breeding grounds for yellow fever, malaria, and dysentery. By the 1720s, as colonial governments and the Royal Navy took more aggressive stances against piracy, hundreds of pirates were captured and publicly executed, effectively ending the golden age of piracy. The pirate's life was not an adventure. It was a desperate gamble by men who had few other options, who chose a short, hard existence with some measure of freedom over a longer life of subjugation under brutal masters. Understanding this reality doesn't diminish the historical significance of pirates. Their democratic practices, developed decades before the American and French revolutions, demonstrated that ordinary men could govern themselves fairly, even if they remained criminals who stole and intimidated to survive. That's the unvarnished truth about pirate life. Drop a comment with another profession or historical period you'd like stripped of its Hollywood polish. Subscribe for more reality check videos about how people actually lived throughout history.